Okay, so APA 101, it's been a couple quarters since I've done this workshop, so and I didn't have time to review it this morning because I've been in meetings, so I apologize. I might be fumbling through this just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to learn why we use APA, how we use it to cite things, formatting guidelines. Again, I'll probably be like pushing through some of this pretty quickly, especially since we're already 15 minutes in, and just some of the changes since 7th edition. We use it to standardize the way that we write things. It just makes it easier to communicate ideas within the discourse, and then it just makes everything just easier to read if we're consistent about the way that we write it. So in formatting, 8.5 by 11, 1-inch margins, 12 point. New Times Roman, though now they allow for a couple other fonts if you want to use them. I'm sorry, I see that we have a chat going and I need to put the chat somewhere. I don't know how to delete you from the published video, honestly, Pearson. If you want, you can leave the room and then we can, you can, and come back later. You can ask for it later, but that's the best we can do for you. Let's see here. Where am I? Wow, sorry. I got to get used to the way that this all runs. Okay, formatting. Left align the text, double spaces through text and references, one space between sentences. This is new. So APA 6 wanted you to do double spaces between sentences. And then they've changed back to only one space between sentences. And then use the heading level to organize your outline. When I send out the APA, the template that I use, I put in all of the headers for you so that you can see like what header is what level. So that just makes it a lot easier. Trish, what question did you have?
How big of a deal is it, that one space? Like, since I learned how to type, I've always done 2 spaces. Or is there a way on Word to like change that? Like, it's going to be really hard for me to do 1. I've been typing since I was like 10 and I'm 38 now. Like,
yeah. So I'll tell you a quick way to get around that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share a different one. So let's just look at, okay. So this is a paper that I wrote. What are you guys seeing? This is one thing. Let me try it. Here. Can you see the paper that I have up right now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an old, just a old thing that I did. So one of the things that you can do is if you're used to doing the double space thing, you can do a find and replace, right? So Control F is find in most stuff, and Mac has a different format. Control H is a find and replace. So find what, and you just put in your 2 spaces, replace with 1 space, and then you hit replace all, and it will go through your paper and do all of the double space replacement for you. And that is the simple way to fix that problem. Does that help, Trish?
Yes, big time. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let me go back to this. Okay, so, okay, wow, so every time I come into this, it does things. Okay, so, okay, now some of the formatting changes that happen between the first and, or the sixth and seventh editions includes recommending page numbers, but they're not required. And honestly, we recommend that you just always put in page numbers all the time, every time. It makes it so much easier to, when you're writing your own paper, if you're like, you know, I need to go back and read that a little bit more, it just makes it so much easier for you to go in and find what you were looking for and you know, read a little bit more around it. Separate title pages for professional versus student work, that doesn't concern you a whole lot right now. The running head is no longer required, which makes me ridiculously happy because that was probably the hardest thing to teach people how to do. The one space after the period, again, easy thing. The title of the document is now in bold, which is pretty easy, and references is also bold, which I think is just a consistency thing, and I'm glad that those are pretty easy changes to update. So now on the title page and a couple of other updates, there's now a space between the paper title and your name. But again, if you get the APA template, all of this is part of the template. And again, you can email the writing lab and just say I was a part of the workshop today, please send me the template, and I will email that out for you. Does that mean a total of 4 spaces between the title and the name? No, just one. So so enter and then enter again. So it's yes, total of 4 spaces. Yes. Sorry. But like I said, the you can email the writing lab for the APA template, and all of this is it's like in there for you, and you just basically fill in the blank. So paper sections, this is if you're doing a research paper, you're unlikely to ever have an abstract, maybe in your research paper, but that's only for some of the classes. A lot of your papers are not going to have a methods, results, and discussion section at this point, but they will have headers based on what your teacher, what is in the prompt, your assignment prompt. You're probably not going to have appendices or tables and figures, or maybe you'll have one. But again, follow the prompt that's in your syllabus. Now, when you're looking at research papers that you're reading for your classes, they will probably have all of these sections. Heading levels, again, all of this is in the already built into the template. So title, bold and center, first header, bold and center, second header, bold and left justified. You are very unlikely to ever get to a third header. If you do end up getting there, you might want to consider just making an appointment with the writing lab, because there's probably something that we need to talk about with your organization. Just letting you know. So that should be your hint to make a writing lab appointment. Writing style and tips. So never use contractions. And again, one of the ways that I get around this and make sure that I'm not using it is I will do the find feature in my whatever program I'm using, my word processing program, to look for the contraction symbol and then just go through and manually put in the contractions. And I will also look for other keywords and they don't, it's not in this, but the use of qualifiers or adjectives, like people will use very or a little or a lot of language to identify an amount of something. And you'll find that if you're reading your sentence and you take out that qualifying language, that the sentence ends up reading the same anyway. So you shouldn't have those qualifiers in there. If you find yourself using a lot of qualifiers, you usually use the same types of qualifiers over and over. And if you find you're the type of person that does that, again, you can just use the search function in your word processing program to find your most commonly used qualifiers and just delete them out. Always use active voice. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on what active voice is. Yeah, Trish, go ahead.
Would you mind going back? You said take out all quantifiers, qualifiers, and then you gave examples. Would you mind restating those?
Yeah, so like qualifiers are like, she was very pretty. He was very handsome.
Adjectives.
Yes, adjectives. Yeah, that kind of thing. And they're often not used. And you'll find you use them to maximize or minimize certain concepts with people, and it's the sentence often ends up reading the same when you take them out. So yeah, that kind of stuff. And if you have more questions about that, let's talk about it in the writing lab, and we can go over that. Same with active voice. If you're not sure what that is, again, let's make an appointment in the writing lab. Use past tense. The researchers researched, that sort of thing. Avoid the use of slang or colloquialisms. The way that I like to think about this is, if you were translating the sentence that you are using into a foreign language, are they going to understand what you're saying, right? And like, if you say, oh, they were, beating a dead horse. I don't even like that phrase, but it's the only one that's even coming to my mind right now. If you were to try to translate that into another language and take it over to another culture, like, they're going to be like, what is that phrase? What are you even talking about? So if you can't do that with a phrase and have it understood, then you probably don't want to be putting it into your paper. And then always remember that periods go inside quotation marks except on direct quotes. Make sure each paragraph has a topic and that every sentence in that paragraph stays on topic. Follow the prompt in your... Go ahead. Yep.
When would you have a quote that's not a direct, you know what I'm saying? It's a direct quote. Like you said, don't put your periods always go on the outside unless it's a direct quote. What is an example when you would have...
so we'll actually cover that in citations when we get to citations, and you'll see what... Yep. Okay, so follow the prompts in your syllabus to develop an outline or general section. So some of the stuff on this slide I actually cover in like my tips and tricks. And if you are having issues with organizing your paper or organizing your thoughts, then definitely make an appointment with me and I will go over this in great detail. Write your introduction and conclusion last. I often do that because your introduction will be a condensed version of your paper in like 4 sentences, and your conclusion should never introduce any new material at all and will be a reverse, summary of your paper. And then again, use that find and replace for common errors. Control F is the find, Control H is the find and replace for those of you using Windows. Okay, citations. So clearly mark what is your idea or your thought from someone else's idea and thought, right? So for instance, a lot of you are probably in FOO or have taken FOO. Bowen did not talk about your mom triangulating you into her marriage. Bowen did talk about triangulation being a coping mechanism for anxiety and tension. Your mom may just have used this as a method with you, right? So it's really important to separate out the idea from what is going on with you, right? So, and your life in your head, right? So the citations are meant to explain and define ideas created by other people. Everything outside of the citation is supposed to be coming from your head. What is from your head? So that's the delineation in the citation. So for in-text citations, always remember to use that signal for one of the signal phrases. The Writing Lab has a list of signal phrases if you have difficulty coming up with your own signal phrases. So according to Bowen, triangulation is a coping mechanism, right? So so these are the kind of the two ways you can do it. Triangulation is a coping mechanism, Bowen 2012, or according to Bowen 2012, triangulation is a coping mechanism. So there's two ways you can deal with citations. And then you would go on in the next paragraph, my mom liked to use triangulation as a way to cope with her anxiety. And then direct quotes, here is where we get into where you put the period on the outside, right? So this triangulation as a coping mechanism may very well have been a full sentence that Bowen stated in the book that was written, but you don't put the period there in the quotation. You put it outside, like you normally would if you had, you know, another quote in normal writing. In APA, the period does not go inside the quotation here. It goes at the end of the sentence. And it's the same thing here. Bowen is a coping mechanism, or triangulation is a coping mechanism, and then the entire citation at the bottom. So that's just, that goes back to where the period belongs when you're using a direct quote for an in-text citation. And then if it's over 40 words, just indent the entire passage as a block quote. And remember to include the page number at the end after the final period. You're probably not going to use a whole lot of direct quotes. I am going to not even go over secondary sources. If you end up trying to do an as cited by in Honda or as cited by, please bring it to us and I will tell you how to not have to do this, because it gets really confusing, and I went into some serious rabbit holes a couple quarters ago trying to actually put together slides that were coherent on this, and these slides are not actually accurate. So just bring that to one of us in the Writing Lab and we will tell you how to avoid doing secondary sources. Okay, so 7th edition changes for citations include how many authors they want you to include in the citation in 6th edition. The first citation wanted you to include all up to 5 authors. In 7th edition, it only wants you to include up to 3 authors. So it just reduces the number of authors that you have on that citation. Yay! For references, yeah, Trish, go ahead. No actual question? Cool. References on a separate page, the header is center, bold, and capitalizes. Always make sure that they are listed in alphabetical order according to the author's last name. And again, if you're having difficulty with how to reference something, just Google it. Yeah, Trish.
Sorry, this mute unmute thing is really throwing me off. When do you use a comma after period or all period?
A comma after a period?
No, like at all.
Oh.
So all gets a period, and then when do you actually use a comma, or don't you? Like according to whatever his name is, et al. 23rd. But then in
So the comma goes after the year.
so if I'm doing an after sentence one where it's like end of sentence thing, and I do Kernis et al. 1993, do I do a comma after et al. Or just leave it in a period?
Nope, it's just a period.
All right, thank you. I've been making that mistake left and right.
Yep, no comma. The comma is only for the sentence structure. It has nothing to do with the et al. Okay. References. So the main thing, biggest difference, there's a couple of big differences on reference updates. You no longer put in the city of publication on book references. The DOI is now, you put in the HTTPS, so you put in a link to the DOI, as opposed to, I guess both of them work on that DOI. So a lot of times what we see in the writing lab with the DOI is people will be in the research. You go into the library, you're doing the research in the library online, and you're looking at articles, and you use the little link that says cite this source in APA. And the link that it gives you on that, the APA that comes up, that copies to your clipboard, will have this like Sakai Antioch link as part of the DOI address, and that's not accurate. So you have to actually go in and manually change it. So it's just something, when you go through and you put in all your references, if you've been copying and pasting from various places, you have to go in and double check that it's accurate, because a lot of weird little glitches will come in, and you have to just go in and fix it. And for various reasons, glitches come in. So just go in and double check that things are doing okay. Unpublished class handouts. Again, these are, you pretty much only use these in FOO, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on this. You want the name of the professor, the year, the quarter, the class it came from, the fact that it's class handout, and like where, what class, what department it came from in Antioch University is in there. If you want this example again, just email the writing lab. We'll shoot it to you. We'll send you these slides, whatever. There's a lot of ways we can get this to you.
What about presentations? Do you put them in the same format?
Yes, they would be in the same format. Yeah. Again, YouTube videos, like I said, I'm not going to go into these in great detail, mostly because like you can just Google all this APA stuff. Purdue L, APA style, they're fine, but like I said, I recommend the Google for most of it. Okay, so that's a super quick rundown of APA